Hello everyone and welcome back to the Moose Den. I'm Thomas the Moose and today I'm going to be doing something a little different than my regular typical videos. Today I'm going to be making a tier list of all the Battlefield games, but I'm only going to be ranking the games that I've personally played. Any of the older titles like Bad Company, Battlefield 1942, and even Battlefield 2142 are going to be in the honorable mentions category. Personally, I don't think it's fair for me to even rank these games that I've never actually played. There are also other Battlefield games that came out during my prime gaming years, like Battlefield Heroes, which released on June 25th, 2009. Battlefield Online, a Korean exclusive Battlefield game that launched March 30th, 2010. And Battlefield Played for Free, which combines elements of Battlefield 2 and Bad Company into a free-to-play game in 2011. Unfortunately, I've never gotten around to playing any of these games, which to me would make it unfair to rank them. And I also want to add, I'm going to try not to go too much into detail with each entry because I want to make a separate video where I dissect all of these games that I've actually played and made a video style essay for each game I mentioned on this tier list. So with all that being said, let's get into today's Battlefield tier list. Alright, so I'm going to be ranking these games in the order that I played them in. And the first game on that list is Battlefield 1943. This was my very first Battlefield game, and it launched exclusively on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 on July 8th, 2009, where I was the whopping age of 6 years old. I was a fucking baby when this game came out. Also, to mention, there were actual plans for a PC release, and it almost happened, but it was canceled in February of 2011, so DICE could focus more on Battlefield 3 when it came out. This game had the legendary Wake Island map, which was easily my favorite map of this game. The other maps, I'm going to try to pronounce, Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima, were fine, but also I always just wanted to play Wake Island. I didn't want to play these games. The game only had 3 classes, which was Rifleman, Infantry, and Scout. And I always played as a rifleman because you can slap a fucking grenade launcher on the M1 Garand, and that thing absolutely slapped. I got so many kills with it, even though I was only 6. I probably just played bot lobbies, to be honest with you. The base game was pretty small, and it didn't have a ton of content, but honestly, I think that's why I fell in love with it at such a young age. It was simple, it introduced me to Conquest, and my little 6-year-old brain absolutely fell in love with the chaos, destruction, and massive battles that Battlefield was known for. This game introduced me to the Battlefield and the whole series and made my little baby brain incredibly happy. So I'm going to give Battlefield 1943 a solid B on this tier list. Next up is a game that I've got to be honest about, everybody. I only played it maybe like a total of 5 or 6 times. I just really couldn't get into it. And I know this is probably going to make a lot of people upset, but that game is Battlefield Bad Company 2. From what I played, it was actually a really good game. It had a solid campaign, which is what I played mostly of, and a little bit of multiplayer. It had way more content than Battlefield 1943, which made it, a lot better in my opinion as a aspect of a game ratio. But for my simple little baby brain at the time, I always just went back to 1943 because of how simple it was and how much smaller it was, and it was just, I don't know, it was simpler, and it was just like, oh, okay, there's these 3 maps, very basic guns, that's it. I don't have to worry about too much about that. But even with that being said, I know this is going to make a lot of people mad, but I'm only going to just give this game a C because really it didn't hook me as much as 1943 did. And even looking back and trying to play the game nowadays, it don't slap. I'm sorry. Sue me. Next up is a game that I remember playing way more than 1943 and Bad Company 2. And that game is Battlefield 3. This is the game that really hooked me and turned me into a sweaty little gamer that I am today. Now, I was only 8 years old when this game came out, and I absolutely sucked at it. But that didn't stop me from hopping into a motherfucking T-90 tank and trying to destroy everything in my path. When I wasn't driving tanks, I was usually playing Recon and hiding in the corner of the map and trying to snipe people. Back then, that was when Recons actually had the radio beacon, which honestly made way more sense to me than giving it to the assault class in Battlefield 6. But I digress. looking back, you had some good maps like Operation Metro. It had Operation Firestorm, which was also a remake in Battlefield 6. And of course, obviously, everyone's favorite, Wake Island. But that was a DLC. I can honestly sit here and talk about Battlefield 3 forever, but this was the game that really got me into playing Battlefield and playing Battlefield, not Battlefield, but playing games in general. And I stopped playing outside with dirt and sticks and started sinking hundreds of hours into video games. So personally, I'm giving Battlefield 3 an A tier. Next game up on the list is where I officially developed what is known as a shit bucket and became a complete fucking degenerate. And that game is Battlefield 4. Honestly, I don't think this one needs much of an explanation. Battlefield 4 took everything Battlefield 3 did and somehow made it even better. Better customization, better gunplay, more content, and some of the craziest evolution moments we've ever seen in Battlefield game history. They made map destructions. I'm telling you, the amount of times I loaded in the Siege of Shanghai and immediately jumped into a tank, completely ignored everything else, and just tried to knock down the skyscraper is honestly insane. And it wasn't just Shanghai. You had Flood Zone, where you can flood the entire map, Roach Transmission, where you can bring down the massive radio thing and telescope thing. And every map had a crazy event that completely changed the way the match played out. My favorite map is probably a pretty basic choice, but it's Operation Locker. I loved how close quarters it was. And honestly, Battlefield 4 was, better than Battlefield 3. So I'm going to have to give this one of the first games in the S tier. Next up on the list, and to me personally, it's a very underrated Battlefield game, and that game is Battlefield Hardline. This game tried to do something different than your typical Battlefield game, and in my opinion, it did very well. The core concept of being, cops and robbers was actually a really good idea, and the game modes like heist and blood money and all that were actually a really good idea, and the game modes they brought to the game were also very fun and interesting, I thought. I feel like people hate on this Battlefield game way too much because, DICE and EA, they did try to shift from the typical Battlefield, core concept of a military style. And, the campaign really wasn't something to shoot home for. But to me, it was just, a fun little idea. And I also hate the take that, people said it should have just been a DLC for Battlefield 4. My honest opinion, if they did that, it would have been one of the biggest DLCs ever for a video game. The game literally had so much to it, and for it to be a DLC would just be something crazy. But with all that being said, I'm going to give this a B, and I know, like I said, don't get offended. This is going to be ranked higher than Bad Company 2. Now, next on the list, and undoubtedly the best Battlefield game of all time. The GOAT of all FPS shooters, the greatest multiplayer game of all time, the best work EA and DICE has ever done, and that's Battlefield 1. Man, where do I even start with this game? This game is just basically answer to all the futuristic hate Call of Duty was getting at the time when this game came out, and a lot of people fucking dropped Call of Duty to play Battlefield. This game was a huge game changer for Battlefield games. It still has the destruction of Battlefield 4 had to offer, but yes, on a smaller scale. But it just had way more details and so much better gameplay. The mechanic of adding a big-ass vehicle in the middle of the game to the weaker side was just a very crazy and very fun aspect of the game. It also had very small details where you literally, when you would enter a vehicle, your character would actually enter the vehicle and not do what games do nowadays, where you just instantly zip into the game. It changed so much of Battlefield, but also kept a lot of the core aspects of what made a Battlefield game very fun. It also had the best game mode of all time, and that game mode was Operations. Not to be confused with the pussy version we got in Battlefield 6. The real deal. Man, I could go on about this game for 5 hours if I really wanted to. So, I'm going to put this in the S tier as well, but honestly, this should go into a tier of its own as the best Battlefield game of all time. But for the sake of the video and the tier list I made, I'm putting it in S tier, but it's going to be way above any of these games. Alright, next up on the list is a game I feel like that tried to be way too much like Battlefield 1, but also try to be something different, and that's Battlefield 5. And on my honest opinion about this game, I really don't think it's that good. Now, I'm not going to go way in too much to detail with it, but it's just It was fun, and I like the aspect where when you would take damage and all that stuff, you would have to have like your own med kit to heal yourself, or you had to go to a medic and he had to heal you, which I mean that made sense and that was kind of a fun thing. But it was just like some of the maps really they were bad in my opinion, and everything else it just felt like a bootleg version of Battlefield 1, and I would always just end up going back to Battlefield 1. And I feel like that's how the community felt at this time. So with that being said, I'm going to have to put this game in D tier. Alright, next up on the list, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can agree. I know some people like this game, so I'm not going to shit on it too much. But in my personal opinion, Battlefield 2042 is probably the worst Battlefield game I've ever played in my entire life. I mean, it brought us back to the modern era for Battlefield because people were getting tired of, oh, everybody's just going futuristic and then going back in time to World War II. Let's just have a game set in the modern time, okay? They were like, all right, we're going to set it in modern time, but like a little bit in the future, which, okay, cool, right? But this game, just way too many mechanics, way too much change. I mean, you could literally have a fucking wingsuit and jump on top of a building, fly halfway across the map and be on the other side of the map, and then you had grappling hooks, you had like all this weird fucking just nonsense shit that I just did not like at all with this game. And the gameplay, it was just bad. And at launch, it was one of the worst launches in Battlefield history. It was just so buggy, and it was just terrible. I mean, they finally fixed it later on, and it kind of was better, in my opinion, later on. But, like, you can't just have a game be shit for, like, the first year or the first 1 or 2 years of the game, and then expect everyone to come back after 3 years, and then it's like, oh, we finally fixed it, everybody. So, with that being said, I'm putting this at the bottom, E tier. Now, next up on the list, and the newest game in the Battlefield series, and that is Battlefield 6. And this game, I mean, kind of saved the series in a way, but not like nothing too extreme. I mean, it's way better than what Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 2042 was, but this game also has a lot of its own problems. One that really makes me fucking mad is why add operations back to the game and then just make it a limited time thing. That's one thing that makes me so upset. Quit making all of these game modes limited time. Just make it a permanent thing. And honestly, I'm kind of happy they do listen to criticism, like with the skins and all that stuff, which to me personally, I don't really care about the battle pass and the skins and all that stuff, because all that stuff is optional. You people don't have to buy it, but you guys complain about it anyways, acting like games haven't been doing this for forever at this point now. So, Battlefield 6, honestly, it kind of saved the series in a way, but it's not really one of the best Battlefield games I've ever played, but it's better than 5 and 2042. So with that being said, I'm finally going to rank a game, below Bad Company 2 for all you people out there, and I'm going to put this in C tier. But that's all the games on this tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I know I should have said this at the beginning, but please, all this is just my opinion. Don't want to offend nobody. This is just how I personally look at all these games. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like, and please consider subscribing to the channel. We're at 8 subs, and I kind of want to get up to 50 subs. That'd be one of my biggest goals, getting us up to 50 subs. So with that all being said, Moose is out.